Alright, how's it going, y'all? So today, I'm trying to answer the question, should you buy the DS1522 Plus or the DS923 Plus? And this is a really hard question to answer. So the DS920 Plus, this guy's predecessor right here, was essentially the staple of the Synology NAS for the home lab community and really just about everybody. It was a great 4-bay unit that just was really versatile. Master of none, but just a very solid experience overall. The DS923 Plus came out a few days ago as I'm filming this video, and it is a great upgrade to it. But the DS1522 Plus might be a lot better of an option for a lot of users for a lot of reasons. And so I kind of want to go over that. Alright, so back in the day, the DS920 Plus, this guy's predecessor right here, was essentially the staple Synology unit. Everybody had them, they were great units, it was pretty much what you bought. Then there was the 1520 Plus that was kind of there, kind of useful. It was on a weird cycle, and it was not that useful. But now we have these two units. Both of them have come out in the past month and a half or so. The only reason they're a year different in the model name is just because of how Synology does their timing. But otherwise, they're incredibly identical units. So the 1522 Plus is $700 US, and the 923 Plus is $600 US, which is an incredibly narrow margin considering the difference between these two. Both of these units have the exact same CPU in them, an AMD Ryzen R1600. They both have an optional add-in card in the back, a 10 gigabit add-in card using Synology's proprietary add-in card system. They both have two M.2 NVMe slots underneath. However, there is a special thing that the 923 Plus can do that the 1522 Plus cannot, and that is that the 923 Plus has the ability to build a SSD volume on an NVMe drive. However, you have to be using one of Synology's very expensive M.2 NVMe's. You cannot do it from the GUI with anything but a Synology M.2 NVMe drive. Both of these units also have external power bricks, though the 1522 Plus's unit is substantially larger, not too big of a deal. The 923 Plus has 4 bays, the 1522 Plus has 5 bays. And this one can scale up to 15 drives via 2 5-bay expansions, or this one can expand up to 9 drives with 1 5-bay expansion. In reality, the 5-bay expansion units, very few people ever really buy because they're quite expensive, but in a pinch, it's not the worst thing in the world to be able to upgrade and have a really easy backup target going to a different section. It's useful in a pinch, but don't really buy it just for that because most people will not use it unless you have a specific use case for it. So for the longest time, I was assuming the DS923 Plus, and I originally thought it was going to be the 922 Plus, was just going to be that unit that everybody bought, a great unit. But the more and more I've looked at it and kind of compared these two, I really think a lot of people would be better served buying the 1522 Plus rather than the 923 Plus. And that's for a few different reasons. First off, this unit has already pre-built 8 gigs of RAM versus this unit has 4 gigs of RAM. Both can be expanded up to 32 gigs with 2 DIMMs, and they're both ECC DDR4. The 8 gig kit that comes in this actually surprises me. The 1621 Plus does not even come with 8 gigs of RAM, but this unit does. No idea why. So if you are looking to buy this unit and upgrade the RAM at all, if you're planning on staying with Synology RAM, which is very expensive, essentially that's $80 for a 4 gig kit, which is absolute highway robbery, but that makes this unit theoretically only $20 more expensive. Now that being said, it's not uncommon to get a off-the-shelf kit and stick it in there, but still having the extra twice the RAM can be very useful, specifically when we look at the longevity of a NAS. Both are upgradable, so obviously it would not be that complicated if you did find that maybe DSM-8 really requires a lot of RAM and you want to be able to upgrade it. Both of these units can go up to 32 gigs, which is more than enough for any DSM operating system this century, I hope. But having that is very nice. Then you also get an entire extra bay for only $100 more. And that gives you a lot of flexibility, and in reality makes it much more likely that you're going to have to upgrade, and if so, you're going to have to upgrade much later on than you would with this unit, assuming what forces you to upgrade is running out of hard drive space. So if you're somebody today who has maybe 30 terabytes, but you know that is going to grow in the future, Buying this unit and slotting it with 4, 16, or even 20 terabyte drives, and having that extra bay for a myriad of reasons you can use it is really, really nice to have. The extra bay gives you so much flexibility. If you have a drive that's starting to die but hasn't died quite yet, you can slot in its replacement in the extra bay and restore it in under a day, versus the multi-week process that it can take rebuilding RAID 5 volume. You can set up as a hot spare if you want to. You can set up as a temporary volume for a backup. You can set it up as a security camera location. You can set up for so many different things. And then when you do start to need the space, you can just slot an extra drive and expand out your volume. It's really nice having that extra flexibility, and I would not recommend people buy a NAS and fill it up with all the hard drives that it comes with, because you're going to want to expand more likely than not. And so having at least 1 or 2 free bays is so nice to have, and really keeps you from having to buy a NAS 5 years down the line and instead makes that maybe 10 years. It's really valuable and is a great forward-looking thing. The other thing that the 1522 Plus unit has that the 923 Plus does not is 4 1 gig ports in the back. Believe it or not, this is actually really, really useful to have. 2, for most people, is going to be more than enough. But 4 gives you the ability to do link aggregation and SMB multi-channel when it comes out that much better. It's also going to give the ability to hop on different VLANs. And so you can have a security camera VLAN, you can have a storage VLAN, and you can have a bunch of different VLANs all being able to pipe into this. Synology is not great about having multiple VLANs on a single NIC. And so having the ability to have 4 different LANs is really, really nice. Especially if you're a bit more of a power user, that's well worth the upgrade in some specific users. Though I will say the majority of users, 2 ports is enough. Both of these units also have the ability to add in a $160 add-in card for a 10 gigabit card. It is a Synology proprietary card, so you cannot get it anywhere else. But that does give them both the ability to do 10 gig or multi-speed. But that is a really nice optional upgrade that you can add in later on down the line. You can say, oh, hey, I now have the ability to have 10 gig networking, or hey, I need more speed, and be able to slot in that card rather than have to purchase another unit. I do wish it came with 2.5 gig Ethernet, but I've worn out that point too much. But they both have the ability for that card. And I will say neither one of these units is going to steer you wrong. They're both solid basic units that are going to work well for pretty much any use case other than specifically Plex hardware transcoding. Neither one of these units, they have the same CPU and that's why, have an Intel QuickSync CPU. They both have AMD Ryzen CPUs. Because of that, they have a lot of performance for everything, except for specifically GPU transcoding of video. Obviously, if you have a CPU without a GPU built in, which is what Intel QuickSync is, you cannot do GPU transcoding on it. And so because of that, the one place these two are going to be lacking is going to be if you are a hardware transcoder for Plex. If you're really looking for that and you know what that is, you will know that you do get a worse performance. You're going to have to use software transcoding rather than hardware transcoding, which means transcoding from one 4K codec to another 4K codec on these machines is probably not going to happen. But downsampling to a 1080 medium or low should be very easy. As long as you're direct streaming, you'll never know the difference. But if you do have to do hardware transcoding and you are looking for 1080 hardware transcoding or 4K hardware transcoding, it's going to get tight pretty quick. So other than the fact that this unit costs $100 less, it also does have the capability to do one other fun thing, but it is still hamstrung by Synology. And you can still do it over here, just not officially. So this unit right here, the DS923 Plus, allows you to make an all SSD M.2 NVMe volume. On the 1522 Plus, through the Synology UI and basically how Synology wants you to do it, you're only able to set up M.2 NVMEs as SSD caches. Whereas on the 1523 Plus, you're able to actually set up as an entire volume, but you have to use Synology's NVMEs to do that. If you put in a non-Synology NVMe into this thing, it will not let you build the volume. It will only let you use that as an SSD cache. Now, both of these, you can do it through the terminal, and I'm planning on doing a tutorial on how to do that, though I still have trouble recommending that to anybody other than like a home user who's a tinker and knows what they're doing, because for a business, it's gonna suck if all of a sudden an update comes out and Synology accidentally bricks your NAS because hey, you were screwing around in terminal and you changed the setting and we were not expecting that, so your NAS is wrecked, not our fault, we told you not to do it. So that is one unfortunate thing that can happen. Though from people I've read online, nobody's had that happen before. It's just a tough thing for me to recommend to businesses because money is actually pretty cheap, but time and data is very, very, very expensive. Employees' time is very quickly going to be much more expensive than just buying a more expensive card or even a more expensive NAS. But that is something that did not come to this model, and I think that's really unfortunate. I think the only reason it did not come to this model is this model has a 22 year on it versus a 23 year on this model, and I think that's honestly why they did it, because they wanted to say any units that are 23 can do it, but any units that are 22 cannot. It's unfortunate considering how literally the exact same CPU in these two things. There's no reason why the 923 Plus should be able to do it, but the 1522 Plus cannot. But in summation, for most users who are really looking at the 923 Plus, I would highly recommend asking yourself, should I pay the extra $100 for the 1522 Plus? Just having that extra bay and that extra RAM probably makes it worth it for you, because I think it's a lot of value in that, and it can really make your NAS last for a lot longer. And so it's a relatively small in terms of percentage upgrading cost, but I do think it gives you a lot more flexibility and a lot more features, especially if you consider how both these units you're probably running with a RAID 5 or SHR1 where you're losing one drive due to parity anyway. So we're talking about 3 drives worth of data versus 4 drives worth of data, which makes it even more pronounced, the 5 bay units. All right, well that's gonna be it for this really brief overview between these two units. Let me know any other two units you'd like to kind of compare between these two. This one's a tough one to understand. I will have affiliate links down below that support the channel. All right, have a good one. Bye.